All right, let's just dive right into this explainer, which is tailored specifically for you, the coaches out there. Today, we're unpacking a really foundational framework based on Chapter 1 of Creating a Culture of Competence, copyright 2000 and 2024 by Dr. Michael Zwell. You know, if you're regularly coaching leaders and execs, this material, it's basically going to hand you a phenomenal blueprint to help them drive truly systemic, lasting change. So here's our quick roadmap to build out your diagnostic toolkit. We'll be hitting decoding complaints, vision of possibility, the 3 cornerstones, invisible walls, transformation tools, and finally, your next session.
Okay, Section 1, Decoding Complaints, the Symptoms versus the System. Let's start by looking at those specific, highly frustrating complaints that executives bring into your practice pretty much every single day.
You know the drill. Your client sits down, they let out a heavy sigh, and they just start venting. Why aren't my employees engaged? Why don't they work harder? They almost always think they've got an employee problem. But right there, that is your cue as a coach to help them look a little deeper into the actual system. Because guess what? These aren't just isolated failures of individual workers. No way. They are actually just symptoms of the environment those workers are operating in. Moving on to Section 2, Vision of Possibility, Shifting the Paradigm. Once we pinpoint those symptoms, we've got to help the leaders shift their whole paradigm toward what is actually possible. The ultimate goal here is getting your client to envision this really dynamic, vital workplace where, as the quote says, employees initiate the actions that reflect their vision. You want to guide your client to visualize a culture where people actually handle conflict constructively, where they take real initiative, solve problems totally on their own, and where leaders actually lead by example. We're essentially shifting them from just complaining about the present to actually designing their future.
All right, Section 3, 3 cornerstones, foundations of success. To bridge that gap between their daily complaints and that ultimate vision we just talked about, we need to introduce your clients to a very specific structural framework.
So, organizational success firmly rests on 3 cornerstones. 1, the competence of leadership, and 2, the competence of employees. But the third one, and honestly, the one that almost always holds organizations back, that is the degree to which the corporate culture actually fosters and maximizes that competence. Which brings us to Section 4, the invisible walls of culture, understanding culture. Now, we've got a really fantastic way to expose those hidden barriers to your clients. First, you need to define culture for your client as the invisible walls of the organization. Dr. Zwell points out that culture is largely unconscious. It's like water to a fish, right? Employees are completely surrounded by it, but they're rarely ever actually aware of it. They just maintain beliefs and follow rules, assuming, hey, this is just a natural order of things. So the big question for you as a coach is, how on earth do you make these invisible walls visible? Well, try creating a dramatic pause in your next session by asking them this. Imagine driving on a flat, straight highway out in the desert. There are absolutely no cars for miles, but you hit a red traffic light. Do you stop? Most people immediately say yes, they would stop. And when you ask them why, they just shrug and say, because it's the law. People unconsciously follow rules just because they're the rules, right? Without even pausing to think if they actually fit the current circumstance. And this brilliantly illustrates the real issue for your executive clients. Ask them, are your employees stopping at invisible red lights that are completely ruining customer service or blocking creative solutions? Are they literally halting progress simply because, well, that's just how we've always done things around here? Or you can take this revolving door analogy straight from Chapter 1. Think about traditional courtesy. Rule 1 says let women go first through a door. But Rule 2 says do the hard work to make it easier for them. Well, at a really heavy revolving door, those 2 rules completely conflict. Should the man go first to push it, or step back and let the woman go first? That conflict creates this weird awkwardness. And in an organization, when cultural rules conflict like that, it totally paralyzes decision-making and creates immense anxiety in the ranks. Okay, Section 5 transformation tools, building competence. So here's the absolutely crucial point. Once your client finally sees these invisible walls and those conflicting rules we just talked about, what tools are you going to give them to tear those walls down? Well, this is your golden opportunity to introduce behavioral competencies. We're talking about those enduring traits, things like results orientation, initiative, or teamwork that really differentiate outstanding performance. For a coach, this is just an incredible tool. Why? Because it literally translates abstract cultural visions into concrete, measurable behaviors. Using the language of competency helps actually shift the culture, mostly because it gives everyone super clear, actionable expectations.
You'll definitely want to anchor your sessions with this really profound insight from Dr. Zwell. Remind your executive clients that their ultimate responsibility, their true legacy, is actually the quality of the culture they create and leave behind. It's not just about this quarter's financial results, you know?
Finally, Section 6, your next coaching session, practical interventions. Let's wrap up this explainer by taking all these concepts and turning them into actionable steps that you can use literally immediately with your clients. Try bringing this exact diagnostic checklist to your next meeting to help your clients objectively evaluate their current state. I mean, just ask them point blank, does our culture actually foster employee development? Are our recognition systems truly rewarding the behaviors we keep saying we want? Doing this really grounds their abstract, maybe frustrated feelings into a solid, concrete assessment. And to kick things off, open your next session with some really specific discovery questions. Ask them things like, what keeps you awake at night regarding your people? Or maybe, what is really driving your need to change right now? Use these to seamlessly transition your client from just venting about the symptoms to actively fixing their system. You're helping them chart a real path toward their ideal culture of competence. Because look, by mastering this framework, you're not just coaching a leader to be a tiny bit more productive. You are handing them the tools to transform an entire culture. You're basically helping them turn a stagnant pond back into a flowing river. So I want to leave you with this question to ask yourself. As a coach, are you currently just treating your client's symptoms, or are you ready to help them finally tear down those invisible walls?